So good morning again. We are presenting today a case study called Building Together when research went viral at Uber. So together, let's see, how do you, slide? Oh, okay. So together with me, Bjorn, here on the front, and Minal, we're all three UX researchers in the Uber team. This was a very large project that involved 8 UX researchers on the redesign of the driver-facing app. So it was in 2017 when we realized that our scale, like Uber currently operates in more than 600 cities, and our need to cater for global market needs was influencing how we were increasing the number of features. So we added dozens of features when we started, and we were also evolving how we could cater the different individual markets. So we realized it was time to redesign completely the driver app, and for that we engaged into a project that lasted over a year. We designed, tested, and iterated different parts of the app, and at the end of that process we did a beta research. So today we're only covering the last part of it. So these are the home screen of both the previous app and the new app. It was a very complex app with more than 80 screens working together. And in this process, we involved more than 500 drivers to give us feedback real time and simultaneously in 7 global markets. So here are some of these screens. And for the first time, they all had to work together to deliver an integrated driver experience. So other than what happens in a lab, we were seeing in a real context in the cars how this app was going to perform. And traditionally, Silicon Valley companies would develop, design, and launch an app first in one market and then expand it to further markets. So in this case, Uber took the risk of actually deploying this app in 7 markets simultaneously and live tested with drivers. One of the key challenges is that a malfunctioning on this app, contrary to other industries, would limit the ability of drivers to provide for their families. So these are the 7 cities where we launched this app in end of 2017. And we were thinking how a driver in Cairo or a driver in Bangalore or in Sao Paulo would use this app. This was kind of the key questions we needed to answer. So we did a beta research. We deployed 1 researcher in each of the cities. So I went to Cairo, Minal went to Bangalore, Bjorn went to LA, and 4 other colleagues went to the rest of the cities. And for 3 weeks, simultaneously, we did a sprint, and we gathered all of this feedback together. We had 3 main goals. So the first one was building a product that was globally successful, like free of bugs and able to adapt to the different market needs. The second one was about bringing all the stakeholders to understand what the reactions of the drivers were. So over 1,000 Uber employees were part of this redesign. So we needed to find a way to bring them along with us, either physically or virtually. And the last one was building together with drivers. So I want to ask how many of you here in the room have used Uber before? Okay, and then keep your hands up if you have driven with Uber. Okay, so I see a few of my colleagues here who have done it. It's a common practice. We did not have all of the answers, so we actually involved drivers in this last part of the development to give us feedback continuously and for 3 weeks so that when we decided to launch, the product was fully ready to cater for the different needs. We embraced a very flexible research program. We were using 4 high-touch methodologies that we could combine however we needed to adapt for the context where we were. So we as local experts could decide what method was more applicable. And We also did not have a standard moderation guide to go into each of the sessions, but the key question was, what do drivers think about this new app? Let me walk you through the story. So this is Tarek, an Egyptian driver. After meeting at the office, we went to a street cafe nearby the office. We had Turkish coffee. And when he felt at ease, then we started one of the methodologies that we combined. This is a drive along. So we were driving along Cairo for more than 1 hour together to see the usage of the product in context. Are the alerts well timed? Is the lighting good? Are all the features coming up in the right moment and working how he would expect? We also have regular lunches with drivers. This is a much more informal setting where we could discuss how they're using the app, and they could build on top of each other. We'll capture their sentiment, and we could gather also their engagement, because they'll be with us for 3 weeks. We also had one-on-one conversations with drivers. This is very useful because they can give us feedback at any moment, right when it happens. They send us a screenshot. We can follow up with them quickly without having to wait until the next time where we could meet. And last, we include a home visit. This is a very rich research method where we gather their context, decoration of their house, who do they live with, what do family members think about his being an Uber driver. But the most interesting piece that captures and gathers all of this together was the channel we used to communicate the findings. So we use a novel Google Plus site, and I know Google Plus is no longer active for consumers, to share all of the research findings as an atomic evidence. So in our paper, we defined this concept of atomic evidence as something that pieces of feedback that are small, raw, and unsynthesized. This could make the stories feel very real. This is what this person, named this way, said in this context. And there was no synthesis when we delivered this. So if our stakeholders were part of the thing, they will really trust what they were seeing. But if they were not, they were back at the office. They could see daily, soon after it happened, what all the research team is gathering for this 3-week sprint. So now I'm going to play a video where you will see this in action. Bjorn, let's change the screen. This one back. Voice, yeah. It is plugged in.
It's plugged in.
Maybe go into this. I'm not sure why it's let me check that.
You guys are a tech company, and you created this incredible product, but we are the front line, and we do the boots on the ground work.
People who make the product are sitting at their desks, and people who are using the driver app are in their cars. We don't have all the answers, especially when we're building something for drivers. How can we incorporate them truly into the process by actually just being like, you know what, you're the drivers, you tell us how it should be. We wanted to go talk to them in the car, get them together for lunch, and meeting them in their home. Anytime you have any thought about the app, it's late at night, on the weekend, whatever, just text us. Let us know what you think.
على طول بنخش نطمن على الفلوس
It shows that I'm supposed to drop you off on the left side.
This is our CEO.
But it should have routed me differently.
No, never thought that Uber would reach out and say, we care about your opinion. That felt good.
And you guys got more to do, I got more to do, we all got more to do, so we are building together.
Hundreds of drivers all around the world have really been co-authors of the app that we're going to launch together. Through listening to you, it is going to improve day after day after day. It's going to make sure that driving gets a little less stressful, safer, easier, and hopefully more productive for you. And we hope that we're going to deserve the partnership that we talk about going forward, and we think this is just the beginning.
What is it? I did four fingers.
Sorry, one moment. Trying to find the presentation again. It's around somewhere, I think.
I did four fingers.
No.
Okay. If you do four fingers.
It doesn't work.
You guys are a tech company, and you create.
Apologies. Thanks for the patience.
All right. So we did this research. We ended up getting data from about 244 drivers in 7 cities. But what was the impact? Firstly, our research went viral. Google Plus was supposed to be just one of our multiple deliverables, but as soon as we launched it, we saw stakeholders throng to the website. We had ICs, their managers, VPs, director-level employees, all joining the Google Plus group. And this was unprecedented level of engagement. We saw that people were commenting, posting, plus-oneing, asking questions, starting work streams. Over these 3 weeks, we saw more than 650 employees join the group. There were more than 1,300 comments on 250 plus posts. Now, this was amazing. We were like, whoa, this has never happened before. As we saw this, we quickly shifted our strategy. We started focusing on Google Plus and de-emphasized the traditionally planned, slow-feeling traditional reports. The second thing that happened was we got really high positive sentiment from all. Atomic evidence, as Edu mentioned, as that thing started coming through Google+, we saw it was being consumed simultaneously by stakeholders. Now, people started feeling that all these issues were real. They saw a lot of intimacy, there was a lot of immediacy as data came up. Stakeholders felt that they were actually talking to and hearing from these drivers that they were building for. Now, this prompted immediate action. A lot of work streams started right on Google+. More than 160 bugs and UX issues were fixed right on Google+, even without a formal traditional report. Now, as stakeholders got more engaged and started actioning on these problems, there was researchers, that's us, and our colleagues, we felt more motivated. We felt more engaged. It's not really common, or it's not really easy to see your immediate impact, especially when you're remote. But as we saw all these work streams getting started, we got even more motivated to go back the next day and surface more meaningful insights. So it was a really positive feeling for all of us. And as we went back and did more research, drivers felt more valued. They felt like we appreciated them. And what they actually loved was not just the fact that we were looking for feedback, but also the fact that we were acting on it. So they felt valued, they felt appreciated. And as this loop continued, it eventually just became a self-sustaining, happy, positive loop. which sustained us for those 3 weeks. And finally, and most importantly, what we ended up with was a global product, a product that was global but also locally relevant. As we scaled out, as we did this research, we found out a lot of copy changes, a lot of localization changes, but also we realized, or we were able to uncover very critical and sometimes not so obvious perspectives on some of these features. An example would be the earnings tracker. So that thing you see on the top, which says $215. So that's basically a card that gives a running tally of the driver's earnings that day. And this is information that's actually mostly sought by drivers. But when we tested this in the markets outside the US, we realized that people had differing perceptions. For example, drivers in LA loved it. It's giving me all this information about my earnings right now, and that's amazing. But when we went to Cairo, drivers felt that this can bring bad luck, or it's not in good taste to show everyone what I'm earning today. When we went to Sao Paulo, drivers felt that this can make them easy targets to robbery or any crime. So now this is critical. This is concerning earnings. People might not even drive. So what we ended up doing, and also because we discovered this early in the beta phase, we were able to quickly launch this with a toggle that can activate or deactivate its visibility on the home screen. So that's how it started looking. You can just activate or deactivate it. This is one of the many examples of product changes that happened just because of beta research. So finally, what happened? These were 3 weeks of research, and today we are in early 2019. The app eventually launched globally, despite all the million complexities it has, to the global market without any major bugs, without any quality issues. Today, more than 1 billion trips and deliveries have been completed on this app globally. And finally, we received extremely positive press coverage, not just on the UX quality or design, but also the way it was built together with drivers. Now, this was huge for us. It was quite an unprecedented phenomena. It had never happened at Uber before, and we wanted to take time to reflect on it and think about what had actually happened and what is it that we learned from it. So I'll hand it over to Bjorn for that.
So I'll just go briefly through some learnings here, because I know we're pretty much out of time. So what did we learn? We made some interesting choices in our research program here, and we wanted to just basically get across what we learned from it and what you can learn from our wins and mistakes. So we used atomic evidence. This is small pieces of evidence delivered directly to stakeholders without synthesis. So there's some nice pros to it. It's very fast. It arrives very quickly after you do your research. It's very transparent. It came right from users' mouths and were delivered to stakeholders just that way. So it's very clear what the user said, and there's no debating the framing or narrative of it. It's also very human. It comes from actual people's mouths. People got to hear from Tarek or other specific drivers around the world. Some downsides. It's noisy. When you rely on small single pieces of evidence, they can lead you down the wrong path unless you consider them holistically next to other pieces of evidence. There's also less accountability from atomic evidence. It's harder to track action on 160 little issues compared to 6 big key insights. So those are some pros and cons. It was suitable for our purposes here, but take these pros and cons for whatever they're worth and consider them in your project. So social media. We used a Google Plus deliverable here for our research. This is very unusual for us. We typically do slide deck reports or document reports. These really had a really unique upside for us. So what made it that way? Well, for number one, social media is a venue for conversation. A published report is more of a final, polished product that you kind of send over to your team, and that's kind of it, maybe. But a social media deliverable is a venue for conversation. People can sort of get in there and plus other people in and react and like and sort of engage with the research. It also forces your research into a digestible format. Because you don't have 20 slides to get across your point, you have a social media post to get your point across. You have to be nice and concise, and that makes research accessible. It's also built for engagement. I won't go too much into this, but social media has had a decade and a half to sort of figure out how to draw people into it day after day after day and keep them hooked, and that certainly helped with us. So finally, Our last learning here is a little bit more philosophical, but we think is actually the most important one. Success in this project came from creating space for other people to sort of contribute to our mutual goal of making an app that works for drivers. And what I mean by creating space, well, we made space for researchers by giving them a platform, a stage internally to Google Plus to sort of convince stakeholders and bring the evidence in the way that they think is best, and also to choose what research methods to use or emphasize or de-emphasize in their market to fit cultural nuances. Stakeholders got some space to engage with the research, with the raw evidence. We didn't just send them the final story, they got to sort of participate in the process. And of course, we made space for our users, our drivers, by having this beta in general, bringing them into the product development process before actually shipping out the app. And we also sort of tried to be as open as possible to whatever feedback they might have for us. We tried to engage them in multiple ways so that they could say whatever they wanted to say. So we believe that a huge part of our project's success here came from this creating space for others to be really good and insightful and creative and contribute to our project. No matter how clever your plan or report or project is, someone you're working with has a good idea for how to make it better. And if you can unlock that value from other people around you, you're really removing the ceiling for how good your research or your project or your product can be. So, and I think that's something that everyone in this room, no matter what their discipline, is interested in. So with that, thank you for your attention. I know we had a little bit of difficulties, but thank you very much for coming out here. This is our contact information. We would love to talk with anyone here, either at the talk or at our booth, the Uber booth in the exhibitor hall. Please come by. We'd love to chat. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for the team. Can I invite questions?
So I noticed with the stakeholders, you did not include passengers as part of the stakeholders. And there's also aspects of the app that are interdependent with the interfaces that passengers see, and in particular, wait time. And so, for example, if it says 6 minutes, I find it very often might end up being 15 minutes. Now, granted, there may be unexpected traffic, but it would be really nice to inform passengers what's the reason for it. Otherwise, passengers have the impression that there is some deception going on. So there is this interdependency that you didn't take into account. You didn't take passengers as stakeholders into account.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right to refer to the fact that we operate a fairly complex product that has sort of multiple sides to it. There's sort of the back end, the tech behind it. There's the driver side, and there's the rider side. I mean, our approach here was to make an app that works for drivers, and part of making an app that works for drivers is trying to give them all the good information they need to be able to provide good, quick service to riders. So we focused on the driver's perspective in that, but we believe that any benefits that we bring to the driver experience trickle into the rider experience as well. But yes, I've also waited longer than expected for rides, and it is frustrating. So yeah.
And we had a whole rider product team who is also looking at this, and we work closely together. So in this case, we focus indeed only in the driver side.
Hi, I was wondering how you, given that atomic findings are rough and noisy, how you did consolidate that into things that were actionable for the product teams. For example, like the hide wages and different, like for different countries. Like, how do you turn all those different pieces of information into something that's actually actionable for your teams?
So I don't know if it was clear during the presentation, but we did not do any formal report. So we were posting things that you could filter in the Google Plus platform, and we also had a tracker to see what issues appeared in which markets, and we saw many commonalities across markets, but as Minal explained in the case of the earning tracker and in some other features, we saw some findings that only appear in certain markets.
Yeah, I mean, that is certainly a weakness of our approach. We did while we did not have like a formal research report, we did have a sort of cross-beta city tracker, or consolidation of like how many times we saw certain issues. So we could, periodically prioritize those and sort of make sure we are trying to drive action on those. But I mean, you're absolutely right. This is one of the downsides of this. I think, fortunately, people working on the product, many of them have a pretty good sense of what kind of bugs and issues are most disruptive to the experience, and also which ones are more easily fixable. So I think there's a little bit of natural sort of triaging that happens when you sort of just surface a lot of findings like this. But you're right that it is a downside. Mm-hmm.
Nice talk, thanks. The UX research went on for 3 weeks, is that right? And did the Google Plus gathering of data continue longer than that? In the context of the overall app development, how much of that overall app development time was the 3 weeks?
So you're asking about like how long this beta research period was compared to the Yeah, so I believe Eduardo mentioned a little bit about this, but the product was in development for, depending on how you look at it, maybe 9 months or so. The beta research was 3 weeks. So the beta research was just before we started rolling out the final product sort of globally. So the real goal there was we had done a lot of sort of like testing in the lab environment of various screens and parts of the app for 6 months or so before that, leading up, again, all over the world. The real goal here was to basically spend 3 weeks trying to understand how does it actually work in the real world. The Google Plus was because of how sort of engaged people were in it, how big of an audience it was, we did sort of continue informal posting of findings from just going out on test drives or sort of like further feedback we got from drivers past that period. We just sort of focused on the concentrated period of 3 weeks here, where we got the most engagement and the most content there. But I think maybe you two could speak to some of the other applications because this was kind of a nice example of how we can do deliverables internally. I know you've used it again, for example. Yeah. Sorry.
Any other questions? No? Okay. If not, let's thank all the presenters again, and thanks to the audiences to come. Here is our session done.